The next gentleman I'm going to bring up is another very, very good friend of mine. We've known each other for, 4 or 5 minutes. And no, actually, we've known each other for 12 years? 15 years? Let's not go too far. About 15 years. And one of my mentors, one of my major mentors, more than a mentor, a real teacher. Tonight we have the pleasure of being graced by his presence here. He just happens to live in the Los Angeles area, and since we're doing it here, he agreed as a friend to come. This is Mr. Marketing. This is the guru of all gurus. This is the top on the planet, the best ever, the most brilliant marketing genius that ever graced this earth. So just so you know a few stats, he basically knows more ways to make money for more businesses than anybody I know. They call him the 7 billion with a what? With a B. $7 billion man, because he's been responsible for over $7 billion in increase in profits. And the way he normally works is he takes a company that has some potential, and he says, okay, what's your income right now? What's your bottom line? They say, well, we make $500,000 a year or something like that. He goes, fine, I will take 25% of, when you hire me, of everything you do over that. So you only pay me if we do more money than that in your pocket. Agreed? Agreed. And that increase has been over $7 billion. Now, you do the math. You do the math on that, okay? He's helped over 300 of the top businesses in the world totally revamp themselves. There's over 12,500 success stories of people and companies that he has helped. In 400 industries. He's been written up in Forbes. Success Magazine wrote 5 stories on him. USA Today wrote 2 stories on him. Entrepreneur Magazine wrote 4 stories on him. He's the guru of all gurus. You've heard me talk about him before. My good friend, my honor to have with us tonight, the one and only Mr. Jey Abraham.
Thanks, Howard. Thank you. Thank you. This is nice. It's a great welcome. Thank you. You're good. Okay. We got to get down. We got to move. We got things to cover. Okay, you're very gracious. I wish my mother were here to hear this. And when I go home tonight and want to get romantic to my wife, I wish that Harv would call and say the same thing. She doesn't look at me with quite that level of esteem. I wish she did this every night I came up to the bedroom. Okay, so Harv is a very dear friend. I've known him for longer than he's said, and I've admired the work he does with entrepreneurs and aspiring entrepreneurs. And he prevailed upon me to do something that I only do usually at my $25,000 programs and with clients, which are hot seats and interaction. But I was going to set a stage in a certain way, and Harv said, no, I want you to give people a couple of really cool, simple little reality check insights before you start, just so they have an ideological sort of a basis. So I'm going to give you a few points, which is not a disservice, but I basically, when I do programs, I do 40 hours, 90 hours, and I've got all these different formulas and laws and principles and concepts, and I'm going to summarize a couple of the more relevant ones for you, and then we're going to demonstrate them by picking different people who answered the questionnaires right before we started, and we're going to bring them up for a very quick compression, 10-minute makeovers and restructuring hot seats, and we're going to do a little bit of fun thing, time allowed. We're going to do Q&A and what I call lightning rounds, where people who are clear and lucid communicators can pose a question at me that is related to a money-making, profit-boosting, business-building, competitive or startup type of a situation, and I'll do my very best to answer. But it's going to be real world, and it's going to be very fluid, and I'm not here to bedazzle you with my presentational skills, because I had a little PowerPoint I was going to use, and Harv changed it all for me and gave me like 7 things he wanted me to tell you in the beginning. And he said, we got to get up there and put it on a PowerPoint. And I said, I can't even read my writing, so our human PowerPoint is here. And I'm going to also have you do my few PowerPoints too, so you can advance those for me. But okay, so let me try to give you a little simple. What I am is a strategist, a business growth expert, a very, very skilled marketing specialist. And I've made a lot of distinctions in my life that change everything. I'm a master at harnessing upside leverage. It's all about leverage, getting more yield for the time, the effort, the opportunity, the distribution channel, the capital, not just the money, but the human capital, meaning you, other people you can leverage off of. And what I want to do just for a couple minutes is give you a few of the more relevant marketing mistakes that almost everybody in business, large, small, sophisticated, simple, high-tech, low-tech, no-tech, startup, mature business makes. And she's going to write them on the pad, and I guess Harv will put them up in the back, and we'll talk quickly about them. Today I'm not really here to lecture. I'm here to demonstrate interaction and work on specific businesses and show you how super logical it is to grow a business. But I'll give you a couple. I'm going to integrate some philosophy and ideology that maybe will stick with you as I'm doing this. First thing I want to teach you is a grounding philosophy that I live by, that everything I do, every client I build, every advertising, selling strategy I engineer, every situation I'm involved in is built on. It's not on this list, but it's called the strategy of preeminence. And it's the philosophical strategy or the strategic philosophy that I've used for the last 15 years. I learned it from a client. It's not original. I learned it from a client that took a $1,000 investment working out of their kitchen table and turned into a $450 million industry leader in 8 years, all internally financed. And yes? Are you asking a question or stretching? Okay, that's fine. I thought she was asking a question. I thought, wow, early in the game. So the concept of the strategy of preeminence is very simple. I'm going to give you some of the foundational points because it can take 2.5 hours to teach, and it's not appropriate here. But number one is you install yourself in the eyes of your marketplace as their most trusted advisor. Number one. As their most trusted advisor, you render genuine, heartfelt commentary on what's in their best interest, not yours. That means you never let somebody ever buy less than they should, in less quantity than they should, in less quality than they should, in less combinations of products or services than they should, because they will be disturbed by it. And there's a lot of illustrative examples I'm not going to go into. You see them as your client, not your customer, and frankly, not even your patient. Why? Take a look at Webster's dictionary definition of customer and client. A customer, as Webster defines it, is somebody who buys a commodity of a service. We're in a world where both two different factions are trying to turn you into a marginalized being. Your buyer market wants you to be no different than anyone else so they can hammer you down and undistinguish you. Your competitors don't want you to be seen as different or preeminent or preemptive. You've got to establish yourself as being the only viable solution in the mind. You've got to basically look at client. Client, as Webster defines it, is somebody who's under the care, the protection, the well-being of another. It's more of a fiduciary role, like you would be with your accountant or your attorney. One of the keys to the strategy of preeminence is you have a constant hopefulness for your client. You live in a world that deals with the transactional impact that your product or service, when at work in the lives or the businesses of your client, the difference it can make. You don't think statically like, well, I'm just a realtor, or I'm just this or that. If you're a realtor, you think in terms of the fact that because of your advice, your interceding, your guidance, your well-reasoned expert direction, somebody got a greater lifestyle. Somebody saved on a mortgage $300,000 of their life. Somebody's family is going to have a richer, happier life, marry better, have more joy. Their assets going to appreciate. You live in the transactional element. The next thing is, the biggest mistake most companies and most entrepreneurs make is they focus on the wrong thing. They fall in love with their business. They fall in love with their product. They fall in love with their service, or they fall in love with being the fastest growing company in the field. The key to the strategy preeminence is to fall in love with your client. If you can't really live for the contribution, the benefit, the advantage, the enrichment, the protection you make in their life, you'll never achieve preeminence. And preeminence is the goal I'm after for everyone I ever help. Lofting you to a position incomparable in the eyes of your market against anybody else. Nobody comes close. The next element of the strategy of preeminence is telling it as you see it, not ever letting people do what they want because it's not usually in their best interest. Guiding them as an advisor to that which is in their best interest. In the strategy of preeminence, this is weird, but it's true. You can't let them buy from your competitor normally, not because the competitor is a rotten SOB, but because the competitor doesn't care enough, doesn't protect enough, doesn't contribute enough. So I can get very deep in the strategy of preeminence, but the key to it is you're the most trusted advisor. You're seen as the only viable solution to a problem or an opportunity that you alone articulate and verbalize. Most people in the world, I don't care who you're selling to, are struggling with a lot of gnawing frustrations. They're struggling trying to get away from problems and get closer to solutions, but they have never put clear, lucid words, verbiage in it. When you verbalize it, you own their trust. You liberate their sense of possibility because they see that you, because you demonstrate empathy, which is a comprehensive appreciation for where they're at, for what they're struggling with. You convey, I feel what you feel. I understand what you're going through. I know what you're trying to get to. I can go on and on, but this is a foundation of everything. And I'm not going to go deep in it, but everything I do, every marketing approach I deploy, every client I guide, every ad, every sales approach, every online, offline, strategic program that I engineer is all integrated in the strategy preeminence. And when I do any kind of program, it's usually the first 2 or 3 hours of training that I do. It's that important. Now I'm going to give you 8 or 9 marketing mistakes that apply to everybody, and we're going to talk about it. You're here at a marketing program, but I doubt seriously if you realize that marketing is the ultimate leverage tool you've got in business. How and why? It costs you the same fixed effort, time, risk, opportunity cost to run an ad, send a letter, do an email, have people come to your website, whether that activity pulls 1 sale, 10 sales, 50 sales. Costs the same to send a salesperson out in the field or on the phone, whether he or she closes or secures 1 out of 25 appointments, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5. Cost you the same to achieve a sale, whether that sale is $50, $150, $500. Cost you the same to get the buyer, whether the buyer buys 1 time and never buys again, buys 1 time every 6 months, 1 time every 3 months, 1 time every month, 1 time every week. Cost you the same to bring in all the leads that you don't convert, whether you sell them nothing else or whether you figure incredibly lucrative ways to monetize them to the point where they're more valuable to you than the people that you target in the first place. Cost you the same to bring in clients and satisfy them, living the strategy preeminence, whether they give you no referrals, 1 referral, 101 referrals. When you've got that kind of leverage, and I've given you this itty-bitty piece of the full puzzle, you've got to commit yourself constantly to figure out what will produce the highest and the best yield in all these areas, and whether the approach you're using is in fact the highest and best use of your time, your effort, and your opportunity. I teach something in my big programs with clients called funnel vision, which is the opposite of tunnel vision. Funnel vision is looking at all the different industries out there to figure how many higher and better ways they have found of reaching a market, selling a market, reselling a market, cost effectively accelerating the buying cycle, and borrowing the success processes from other industries and translating it to yours. Most people, I'm talking fast because I'm on a real quick timeline, most people in an industry market, sell, approach it the same linear way everybody else in the industry does it. Not because that's the best, not because it's the most profitable, not because it's the fastest, not because it's the most cost-effective, not because it's the safest, but because it's what everybody else does. When you study the success processes that other industries have quite accidentally stumbled upon, you'll find faster, easier, more powerful, more profitable ways to do it. Let me give you an example. One of my sons used to sell copiers for a big Japanese copier company. He had Los Angeles as his territory. He called cold on doors in office complexes, and he was lucky to get 1 appointment a day, and he was working like 60 hours and making 30 grand, and he came to me and I said, that's the dumbest thing in the world. Let's first of all figure out what categories of industries and businesses are 3, 5, 10 times more likely to buy your products and buy multiple of them. Let's figure out where they are in your territory. Let's get a list of them. Then let's, on the phone, try out a bunch of different ways of securing an appointment till we found the way that pulled the highest and best approach. Let's set up appointments in cost, in tight geographic concentration. Let's work out different presentations that we know outpull the one you're using. Make a long story short, by just shifting his approach, his dynamics turned totally. He went from 60 hours and 30,000 to about 30 hours and about 80,000. That's what you're talking about by changing the approach you use, the strategy you follow. Point of reference, and it's very important here, is you can shift your strategy and you can double or triple or quadruple your results. You can change your marketing and you can improve the performance of an activity as much as 21 times, 2,100%. In the course of the typical business, there are between 10 and 30 what I'll call leverage or impact points that you can increase or impact 10% to as much as 2,100%. When you got that kind of leverage, you got to know what it is and you got to work very hard to reach it. So the first thing I said was marketing is the ultimate leverage. Next is most people don't. Now, by the way, I'm very simplistic. I have a concept called marketing mistakes.